Hello, my name is Lauren Lahas, and I'm getting put back on a GLP-1. So because of that, I thought this would be the perfect opportunity to share my personal GLP-1 story because the GLP-1 hate is so forced, and I'm honestly getting sick of it. Because what do you mean? For the first time in modern medicine history, that being overweight, being obese or severely obese is starting to be looked at like the disease that it can be, instead of always being the byproduct of laziness, overeating, or poor habits, right? That sometimes it's an imbalance within your body, whether that be a hormonal imbalance or an insulin resistance or diabetes or anything like that. And so because of this, people get into a little lab and they do their little thing, and lo and behold, they have a medication called a GLP-1 that has done wonders for people who, again, are overweight, who are obese, who deal with medical issues because they're overweight or obese, and this is helping them. And surprise, surprise, the biggest hater of this is the plus size community, is overweight people. Make that make sense to me. Now, before, people were hating on it because a bunch of rich people and celebrities were buying up these drugs in droves, and then people who actually needed it, like, diabetics and all that, could not get a hold of Ozempic and all the other GLP-1s, and people were in an uproar because of that. But that's no longer the case, and yet people are still hating on it. Why? Why? Because it hasn't been out long enough to know the side effects? Really? Really? That's what you're going to tell yourself? So that's why I wanted to share my personal story, because it's like, I'm sick and tired of people speaking on things when they don't know everyone's story. They don't know why people choose to go on a GLP-1, right? So let's take it back. I'm going to rewind for a second. Now, I haven't been overweight my entire life. I haven't had weight issues my entire life. My weight issue started the moment I hit puberty, which was in high school, which also was when I was at my heaviest. I also grew up in a Latino household. My mom was a great cook, but I wanted to do sports. I've always felt this need to be physically active. I wanted to play basketball. I wanted to be on the swim team. I wanted to be on the softball team. But come to find out, it ended up being a money thing. My mom didn't allow me to do sports. I also got involved in like show choir and musical theater and singing and stuff like that. So, sports and physical activity wasn't something that I was involved in high school, which also was a reason why I was at my heaviest, right? So at my heaviest, the heaviest that I've recorded my weight was like 250. And at that time I was a size 16, right? So when I went to college and I started gaining some freedom, the thing that I gravitated to was the gym. And so around 18-ish, I became a gym girly, and I was in the gym like 4 or 5 times a week. And my sophomore year, so I was like 18, 19, I dropped 60 to 65 pounds. And what made me realize that I was always going to be a bigger woman was I went from 250 to 190. Now, I've never weighed less than 185, right, in my life. But usually when people drop 60 to 65 pounds, they're a brand new person. And I was working out at the time. I was lifting weights, I was swimming, I was biking. So like the body composition was different too. And people saw the difference in my body, but I only went down from a size 16 to a size 14. And I was devastated. I was devastated. Now, at the time, I was also in a sorority and I had a bunch of friends, and I've always known how to dress for my body type. And I've always enjoyed fashion. I've always just loved that aspect of myself. And so I would have my friends come over wanting to borrow my clothes, and they would still be so shocked that I was a large or an extra large, or that my pant size and my dresses were size 14s, because they're like, Lauren, I look at you and you look so much smaller. I'm also 5'8", right? So I'm not this small petite woman, but I was devastated because I wanted to be smaller, because I've said this in another video, brands, clothing stores, clothing, options, the biggest option tends to be a size 14, 16, because sizes aren't regulated. Sometimes I would have to go up a size and then they wouldn't have it. Going shopping with my smaller friends all the time, I was stuck buying shoes and accessories, and maybe that was a little bit embarrassing to me. But also, as a fashion girly, like, I wanted more options for myself, right? And so one of the biggest motivations, and I'm not gonna lie, I will never ever deny this. One of the biggest motivations as to why I've always wanted to lose weight in my life was for fashion purposes, because I do want more options. I would love to know what it's like to be able to go into any store and know they have my size, even if I have to go up a few sizes, right? Because again, sizes aren't regulated in America specifically, and it's crazy. But I'll probably never get there, and that's okay for me. But also health, right? Like, health is important, and that's my biggest motivation is to be healthy and to live a certain life. I will never apologize that I want to be that soccer mom or that mathlete mom, the dance mom that also is training for triathlons and does Pilates, right? And that will always take a certain type of agility and energy and flexibility, and I will never apologize for that. So anyway, also around this time, so 18, 19, 20, I went to the health clinic because I thought that maybe I wanted to get on birth control because I wasn't super sexually active at this point of my life. I had already lost my virginity at 18, but I was thinking about maybe, having sex, and I wanted to make sure that I wouldn't get pregnant. I also hadn't had a period for 3 years. So 17, 18, 19, I did not have a period. And I was like, you know what? That's a little strange, right? Like, I didn't mind, periods are very, very inconvenient. But it was also because my body just went through this massive transformation as well. Like, I lost 65 pounds, and, women who lose weight, women who work out a lot, they know that sometimes their periods either stop or they become highly irregular. So then, because of my other symptoms that I was dealing with, and I think we did a blood test and everything, I was diagnosed with polycystic ovarian syndrome, PCOS, which is basically a hormonal imbalance. So at that stage of my life, I had higher testosterone, lower estrogen. So the women that have that type of PCOS tend to gain weight around the belly, and it's highly noticeable because if you think about men who have regular testosterone, which would be higher for women, they tend to gain weight here. Also, hair on the face. I'm also Black and Latina, so that was not a good period of my life to have to shave my face. When I had gotten older and I moved to LA, laser hair removal was way more affordable, so I took care of that. But being Latina, I was already gonna fight the mustache, you know what I mean? Being Black, being a Black woman, my hair is darker and coarser, and so, I dealt with some facial hair issues, the fatigue, the inability to lose weight. Now, getting older, I graduated college, right? And I did gain some weight back because I was doing finals, I had an internship, and I wasn't able to go to the gym as much, right? And also, I'm not gonna lie, I drank like a fish in college. And it's not necessarily drinking so much that causes you to gain weight. It's the slowing down of your metabolism. It's also you get the munchies, right? I lived off of Waffle House and Whataburger in college, and honestly, had I eaten better in college, I probably would have been way smaller and like a muscle mommy. But because, like, again, I partied a lot, I drank a lot, like, and I did not have the greatest, eating habits, I gained some of that weight back. So now I'm like 22, 23, and I'm trying to lose the weight that I gained, and it was virtually impossible. Now, as a fitness person, right, the first thing they always tell you is caloric deficit, your eating habits, right? Part of losing weight and maintaining your weight, they always say it's like 80-20, 80% being what's in the kitchen, what you're eating, what you're consuming, and then 20% your physical activity. I've always had physical activity in the bag. Like, that's never been my issue. But in my early 20s is when I really, really started to look at what I was eating, and I started to make better choices, and I started to eat in a caloric deficit. I really started to focus on that aspect of losing weight, right? Now, I went about my business years and years, and I was not able to lose weight. And I was also, again, dealing with other symptoms. And PCOS, they always just want to put you on on a birth control, right? And initially I was okay with that because they wanted to make sure that I could start a period, right? Because that would have been an entirely different thing if I was not able to start a period. I dealt with irregular periods for most of my life until I got on birth control. And so I was on birth control since I was like 19. And I was just not losing weight, and I had fatigue issues, and there was other things. And I will always be this person, I'm going to say this, but one of the reasons why I've been so hard on myself in regards to my weight and physical appearance, because again, I've always been a gym girly. I've always been in the gym for the majority of my life. And excuse me if I want to look like I am in the gym 4 times a week, right? And then again for fashion purposes. But as I got into like my mid to later 20s, it really was focusing on my health. I just wanted to feel better. I knew that I was getting older, and if you want to have a certain quality of life in your 30s, 40s, 50s, you got to start that in your 20s, right? And making that into, lifestyle changes and habits, not necessarily just because you're trying to lose a few pounds or you want to drop a few pant sizes. Like, no, like you got to make this into a lifestyle. And that was not my problem. That's never been my problem. Like the guys that I've dated, my friends, they would always, look at what I'm eating and they'd be like, Lauren, I still don't understand why you struggle with your weight, because I eat worse than you, right? Like my skinny friends always have eaten way worse than I do. And they were skinny and I was just always pudgy. So, going to doctors, I got put on everything. I got put on the diet pills. I tried different diets. I tried HCG diets. I did everything that was out there, and I still was not able to lose weight. Okay. Like it was that serious. The HCG diet, I kind of lost a few pounds because you eat so little that whatever, but I still didn't lose as much weight as other people on these type of very highly restrictive diets, because again, there was something happening in my body that just wouldn't allow me to release the fat that I was burning, I guess. I don't know how to explain it. So here's one of the rougher parts of my story. So again, always coming from the fitness perspective, because I've always been in the gym, I've always been into fitness. They shove it down your throat, that caloric deficit. If you want to lose weight, it's a caloric deficit. So that's what I did. And I would see that I wasn't losing weight. So I would eat in an even more of a caloric deficit, wasn't losing weight. So what would I do? Eat into an even more of a caloric deficit, where I was starting to pass out. I passed out a few times at the gym. I passed out at work. I remember walking in the park, and I would always carry like apple juice and a granola bar on me, and I wouldn't eat until I felt like, oh, okay, I need to start eating because I'm feeling lightheaded. Come to find out, I have lower blood sugar. So that was not a good habit that I was developing. And sometimes when I would feel lightheaded, I wouldn't get that sugar into my system quick enough and I would pass out. I remember one time being in the park and I felt myself starting to go. And so I took a sip of my apple juice and ate my granola bar, but I was too late. And then I just came to with people over me being like, oh my God, whatever. At the gym, there was one time where I could not be conscious. Like I could not keep myself conscious. They were like, if you can't go to the locker room, if you can't walk to the locker room, we're calling the ambulance, right? And I was wobbly. I was trying to get to my gym bag because again, I had my apple juice and my granola bar, and the same thing happened. I got to the locker room. I sat down because I knew what was happening, drank my apple juice, came to just on the floor. Right? I couldn't finish a lot of my workouts because I was not eating enough to maintain my body, to maintain the energy to not even just work out, but just to maintain the energy to just like function. And I was miserable during that part of my life. Now, I'm someone that likes to work out. I enjoy being physically active. I enjoy riding my bike. I enjoy swimming. I enjoy lifting weights. And so, I don't like to claim that I had an eating disorder, because that's not where my intention was. You know what I mean? Like my intention wasn't to not eat. My intention wasn't, I don't know. I don't know if that makes sense, but I caloric deficited myself into an eating disorder, because that's what I gave myself when I was eating so little that I couldn't even function. Like I had such low energy. Like at the time I rode public transportation too. So I was like, Lauren, I remember telling myself, all you got to do is just make it to that bench. All you got to do is make it to your desk at work. All you got to what kind of life is that? And I finally realized that I was like, Lauren, this is not worth it. For you to lose weight, which you're not even losing weight anyway. I went through this entire process for maybe a few years and I still was not losing weight, right? So I was like, it's not worth it. You know, it's not worth it. Like you're putting your health at risk anyway. You're not being able to do things that you like to do, like working out and riding your bike and swimming anyway. So it's just like, stop. Right. And so, you know, my doctor tried a diet pill, phentermine, I think it was. My doctor put me on a diet because, again, I was still obese, right? I still would go to the doctors and they'd be like, Lauren, you need to lose weight. Like you're too big for your BMI is too high for being 5'8". I'm supposed to be 145. And you know what a nurse practitioner told me once? I was like, there is no way that my body will ever be 145. And she was like, well, it could be if you emaciated yourself. And I had just gone through this whole like issue of not eating. And I was like, motherfucker, I wanted to punch her in the face so much, because what are you trying to tell us? Like, is thinness that important to you that you're telling me to not eat, to emaciate myself just so I can be within your little chart of where my BMI says that it's supposed to be healthy? No. Like, I was like, no. So these things just did not work for me. You know, I gained weight during COVID like most people, right? Even though I wasn't eating bad, because again, my eating habits are not my problem either. But with PCOS, I don't know, I smell a donut and I gained 10 pounds, right? And I always just would be so hard on myself because I knew just how hard I was gonna have to work to lose those 10 pounds. So after COVID, I went from Florida to Colorado. And so in Florida, around COVID time, that's when, you know, GLP-1 started to be on the market, specifically Ozempic, semaglutides, right? And then tirzepatides, right? And so my doctor was like, you know what? I've been hearing good things about this. I think we can get your insurance to cover it, because I was considered pre-diabetic because of my PCOS, my insulin resistance. And also, let's not forget, I'm still considered obese for my weight and my height and where I was on the BMI chart, right? So at the time, before it gained its popularity, my insurance covered Mounjaro, which is a tirzepatide, not the semaglutide. And so I started on, you know, that GLP-1, the Mounjaro. And so during this process, I moved to Colorado. And so people drop a bunch of weight on GLP-1s in a short amount of time. And that's why a lot of people who maybe shouldn't be on them like it, right? For me, that wasn't necessarily like my thing, my process. Like, I was on Mounjaro the first time for a whole year maybe, and I only dropped like 35 to 40 pounds, which was sensational to me, because trust me, for what I had to put myself through to lose 10 pounds, and for the amount of time that it would take me to just lose like 5-10 pounds, being able to just like work out and enjoy my life, and I was still losing weight normally, like a normal person, this was amazing for me. So I still lifted weights though, right? So they don't like for you guys to lift weights on these things so you can see more of like the scale go down, but I didn't care. It also did not take away my appetite like it did for other people. The Mounjaro, the tirzepatide, just fixed the imbalance in my body. It was the missing component in my body for me to still do the things that I was doing normally, and I was able to lose weight, right? I was still going to the gym. I still ate right. I still ate in a caloric deficit. And because of that, because it was the missing component in my body, it allowed me to lose weight. And so I dropped like 35, 40 pounds, again, in a longer time period than normal, because I was lifting weights, and it didn't just abolish my appetite. I still ate relatively normal. You know what I mean? So around this time when I had to stop Mounjaro, my insurance stopped covering it. And it's because it was gaining in popularity. And this is an expensive drug. Like, out of pocket, it's like $1,200, which isn't something that people can afford out of pocket. Like, I definitely couldn't. And so because of the expense of Mounjaro, my insurance stopped covering it, and so they would still cover Ozempic, right, which was like $25 at the time, which was what I was paying for Mounjaro at the time. I didn't last a week on Ozempic. I don't know what it is about semaglutide, but I had the worst side effects, which I don't have side effects on Mounjaro, on trizepatides. Like, I get nauseous a little bit the first time if I would up my dose, but that's about it, right? On the semaglutide Ozempic, like, I had a pancreatic flare-up. I had the worst heartburn. I didn't even last a week. I think I took it for 3 days and stopped it. And because of that, I think my insurance covered Mounjaro a few more months, but then I didn't live in Florida anymore. And so I needed, a new year came about where I couldn't claim Florida insurance, right? I lived in Colorado now, and Colorado insurance did not cover it. The insurance for my job at the time would not cover it. So I stopped. I wasn't on GLP-1 for the past 2 years. And I'm gonna hit you with the truth bomb. Okay, I'm gonna hit you with the truth bomb. Now, around this time as well, you saw these plus size influencers who were also on Ozempic, trizepatides, whatever, go on their platforms, go on social media to be like, I wouldn't recommend these drugs because as soon as you get off of them, you gain all the weight back. Yeah, you gain that weight back if you didn't instill the proper lifestyle changes to maintain your weight. Because as someone who worked out, as someone who ate right, I was able to maintain my weight loss for an entire year until my I had a hormonal fluctuation, which I'll get to in a second. I was able to maintain my weight loss. So again, I hate that some of these plus size influencers and people get on the internet to spout garbage when you know that you didn't implement the lifestyle changes necessary to keep your weight where it was. So of course you gained all that weight back, right? Don't blame it on the drug. Blame it on your lifestyle choice, girly pop. Like, oh my God, I wanted to have a seat with these women and be like, let's chat and see what you're really doing, right? So, okay, we're fast forwarding to this year. The past few years, I've really not wanted to be on birth control because I had been on birth control since 19. And I'm like, Lauren, maybe it's time to take a break from birth control. I haven't really been dating since I've been in Colorado, since Denver, Denver. Anyway, that's a different video. So abstaining is fine, right? It's like, Lauren, like, if you're so worried about condoms breaking and you don't want to be on birth control, you could always abstain from sex, right? Like, that is always an issue, or that's always an option, and that's what I've been doing now. But there was a time where maybe I thought, like, okay, let's try non-hormonal birth control. I tried an IUD last year, so 2014, right? I learned the hard way that I am one of the small percentage of women whose body rejects IUDs. Right at the time, I got a hormonal panel, and the doctor who prescribed me the IUD, and also she was thinking putting me back on Mounjaro. My insurance didn't cover it, so I couldn't be on Mounjaro. Anyway, she saw that like my thyroid level was a little low, so she wanted me to try this medication that made me just want to eat everything in sight. And it was crazy. And I instantly, like, I didn't even last a month on that medication because, again, as someone who struggles with weight management, I was not about to do that. But I had such bad side effects with my IUD as well that I gained like 25 pounds, right? And so I was like, because of the weight gain, but also because of the other very unfortunate side effects that I dealt with my IUD, I decided to get my IUD out last October. And instantly, a lot of those side effects went away. I chose to abstain too, you know what I mean? Because it's like, if you're so worried, like, you just don't want to get pregnant, you could always just not have sex, right? Because I did not want to be on a birth control, and I haven't been since. But again, I mean, the issue arose that I had gained 25 pounds, which was devastating for someone who works so hard, who's always in the gym, who always does the right things. I knew that without help, that this was going to be hard or virtually impossible, because it is so close. I will never say that it's virtually impossible to lose weight. It's right there with PCOS, and the women who have PCOS who are in my position know what I'm talking about. And so I was like, well, I guess this is just how I'm gonna have to live my life. I still have been in the gym, so eating right. Didn't really like lose weight at all. But this summer, so like a few months ago really, right? I decided to take the leap and get my hormones checked. So I went to a hormone specialist. At this point, I've spent well over $1,500, but I really liked my doctor. She did an extensive hormonal panel. Come to find out, and I think it's just with age, with a hormonal fluctuation of me having my IUD and something else, I now had higher estrogen. I produced 4 times the amount of estrogen in my body, lower testosterone because a doctor prescribed me testosterone because in my older age, I'm in my 30s now, I started having hormonal acne, which is weird, which a lot of women who grow older start on a testosterone blocker just for that. But it was like too low, right? I had low cortisol. Like it was just crazy. Like, and of course Anthem didn't cover any of this. So this has been all out of pocket, which I don't regret because the life-changing, medication, not really, but just really regulating my hormones have made all the difference. So again, like, I mean, I'm 35 and I would like to get to a point where I can manage my weight, right? Where my weight doesn't fluctuate as much as it does. Also, like I was just dealing with really bad sleeping habits. Like I was not sleeping well. Digestion, I know, not cute, my fatigue, my energy levels, like, I try to go to bed at a decent hour and I try to get up. I like my morning time, but there was a point recently where I couldn't even get out of bed. I just had such low energy, and it comes to find out that I have really like low cortisol in the mornings. And it's funny because I was thinking that I had high cortisol because high cortisol leads to stress belly, which leads, it leads to the inability to lose weight around the middle, but also lose weight in general when you have high cortisol. That's like one thing that they tell you with PCOS. And so I was even changing my whole like gym regimen. I got into like Pilates and bar classes because lifting weights strikes up your cortisol levels, whatever. So that has been absolutely life-changing. And I have been able to lose some weight naturally, doing absolutely nothing than what I'm doing in a caloric deficit, eating well. I'm not gonna lie, like I haven't been to the gym in the past few months as much as I would like to because I did get a second job for the holiday season. Like, I just wrote a book and I want to, do music in the new year. So I haven't been going to the gym as much as I would like to, and I still have been slowly but surely losing weight. What do you know? You get your hormones regulated. Now, the reason why my doctor put me back on a GLP-1, because, I still had weight to lose even at my smallest, right? But also what GLP-1s do, and she explained this to me, and this is what I'm going to put forth out to anyone who listens to this video. GLP-1s, specifically trizepatides. I don't know about semaglutides because that's not been my journey. But what GLP-1s do is that they regulate your insulin. They regulate your pancreas, which regulates your insulin, which also regulates your specific hormones, not necessarily the reproductive hormones like estrogen and testosterone, but it helps, but also in proper digestion and other, hormones that deal with fatigue, energy, digestion, all these other things that I was dealing with that had nothing to do with my reproductive hormones, which what PCOS and doctors, OBGYNs tend to focus on, right? Hence why they wanted to put me on a high estrogen birth control, on a testosterone blocker. Like they were focusing so much on the reproductive hormones and just neglecting all the other hormones that could be causing all my other symptoms, right? And so the reason why, and I'm not supposed to say this, but she did tell me that like doctors are in labs, right? Because the people, they're trying to figure out something that maybe people like me and in my position have to take for the rest of their life, like other things, to just keep your pancreas healthy, to be able to maintain your hormones, for weight regulation, but also for me, it was really important for my sleep and my digestion and just my energy too, right? Because if I'm sleepy, if I'm tired, if I don't have energy, I'm not going to be going to the gym anyway, right? To implement the whole physical activity thing. So, you know what? I redid my hormonal panel for like, whatever. And she was like, Lauren, there's still room to improve. So the reason why she wanted me to go back on a GLP-1 was to focus on the root, right? On just like a GLP-1 just, increases your pancreatic function. It makes sure that, it's functioning properly, which again regulates your hormones, which regulates other things in your body. And that's specifically the reason why she wants me to go back on a GLP-1, not for weight loss. Also, again, your pancreas regulates your insulin. I still had an insulin resistance. Honestly, it's the opposite. Like, I have like too low of insulin, and my body just does not regulate my insulin, hence why I have, weight issues and all the other issues that I had, even on the lower side, because some people have it on the higher side, which ends up you're pre-diabetic or you're diabetic, right? That's not my problem. My problem was that I had too low of insulin, and my body needs to learn how to regulate my insulin. And that one primarily, I think, is why I was dealing with the health issues that I had in regards to like weight and all this kind of stuff. So long story short, folks, do your research. Because if you did your research instead of what other people say on social media, there are other reasons why women are on GLP-1s. And again, me personally, I'm gonna hit you with some violence. It's none of your business anyway. But really do your research as to why women may go on GLP-1s. It's not always cosmetic. It's not always aesthetic. It's not always, to be a size 2. You know what I mean? It's for other reasons. I am excited to be back on a GLP-1 because, again, I did have weight to lose, but also if I can maintain a proper hormonal function in my body, so my energy levels are great, I am sleeping better, I have more energy in the morning, because I do love my morning time, because again, that is my gym time, but also like that's my reading time, that's my writing time. I like to get out of bed with energy. I feel like I'm very, very productive in the mornings. I'm gonna be on this GLP-1 until my doctor says to take me off of it, or I don't need to be on it, right? And so maybe my body gets a certain way where I can do these things naturally. But, and I'm not supposed to say this, doctors are in labs to look at other options, to look at ways that for people like me who may just need to be on something the rest of my life so I can regulate my hormones, I'll be the first in line. Because it's so much more than just losing weight. It's so much more than just being skinny, people, okay? Now, this isn't something that I'm doing right now, okay? And I don't even want to put this forth into the universe, but people say Ozempic babies, right? They say like, oh, you can get pregnant while on a GLP-1 because it disrupts your birth control. But for some of us, and I'm going to bring it back to myself, who had irregular periods, who had dysregularities in my hormonal, my reproductive hormones. When you regulate those things, guess what happens? It's easier for you to get pregnant, right? And that's another reason. I feel like I'm just like, sometimes social media and what people say without doing their research online just makes me so angry, because that's another reason why people tend to have, Ozempic babies. Like, they always put this on the semaglutides and Ozempic, because they accuse everyone in Hollywood or rich people who lose weight on being on Ozempic. But that's another reason why women tend to get pregnant easier, is because they're regulating their reproductive hormones. They are losing enough weight to regulate their periods, which is something, if I'm going to be honest with myself, the more weight that I have lost in my lifetime, at least in adulthood, the more regular my periods became, right? The heavier I was, like when I would fluctuate upwards, that is when my periods would start getting irregular, and I would miss periods, and I would go for months on time without having one, right? And then when I would fluctuate downwards. So more of the story is, do not speak on things you know nothing about. Do not speak on what you heard in another video, because those people don't know what's going on, okay? Do your research primarily, and also for the people, and by people I mean women. I've seen more women, but I've seen a few men, and I'm like, way to be sassy, who are just like, wishing ill will on women who are on GLP-1s because they think that they haven't been out long enough to understand the long-term side effects of these GLP-1s. And so they're just like being all snooty in these videos. And I'm like, how dare you? Also, if you want to be on one, just say that. They're not as expensive as they were, right? Now, Serena, my girl, you're doing a little too much. You're doing the most with these row endorsements and advertisements. But to her point, like, if you want to be on one, just say that. They're a lot more affordable. Consult your doctor first, right? Don't self-diagnose and whatever. Consult your doctor and get on one. If this is what I have to do to regulate my hormones so I can sleep better and have good digestion and I can manage my weight naturally and I have a better quality of life, so be it. I will never apologize for that. And I don't want any other woman to apologize for being on that. Okay? Okay? This fat bitch shirt is also under merch on my website because I've been a fat bitch. I will claim that till the day that I die. Okay. Also, the reason why I chose to put fat bitch on a shirt is like, I feel like if we just claim our insults, they lose power, right? And that's what men always want to say about us. They always go for fat bitch, even if you're not even overweight. As soon as you reject them, as soon as you just don't give them the attention that they wanted, it's fat bitch this, fat bitch that. And I'm like, okay, fine, so be it. I'm a fat bitch. You know what I mean? Like, what's it to ya? Anyway.